Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. We've got multiple stories today, including some interesting news out of Joe Gibbs Racing that is good news for Christopher Bell and the newest addition, Chase Briscoe. Plus, I have a look at the TV ratings for 2024, and that will lead me into my final story of the day, which is a look back at the year and a reminder of just how damn good it was. And finally, I'll wrap up with a couple of orders of business, including 3 giveaways. I'll be announcing the winner of this Martin Truex Jr. helmet, plus we're celebrating hitting the 10,000 subscriber milestone by giving away 1 hat and 1 shirt. Stay tuned for those at the end. However, before we get to those fun things, I want to share what my first non-NASCAR weekend looked like. Let's just say it was football heavy, including a trip down the road to San Marcos to watch my daughter's school, Texas State, take on Brett Favre's alma mater at Southern Miss. We didn't stay for the whole game because it was an absolute blowout at halftime. Go Cats! I have to admit, it was nice to get out and enjoy some college football for the first time this year. Now to our first story of the day, and it comes from Joe Gibbs Racing. Jeff Gluck reported today that JGR will now allow the drivers to compete on the dirt track. But before we discuss what that looks like, let's go back to January of 2023. That's when a very frustrated Christopher Bell shared the organization's view on dirt track racing.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Chili Bowl. It's, a very special place to me. Definitely the largest event that I grew up going to as a kid. And, it means the world to me that I've been able to win it. But, Joe Gibbs has been extremely, extremely vocal about his, I don't want to use the word hatred, but it's pretty close to hatred towards dirt track racing, and just, he does not love dirt track racing or open wheel racing at all. And I mean, before me and Coy had a great relationship, Coy Gibbs, and I would always funnel my dirt track stuff through Coy, and Coy would, he loved it. He thought it was really good for me to do. And, he would kind of tell his dad that, that we talked about it, and he thought that it was fine for me to go do. So obviously Coy passed away in November, and I kind of lost that, that connection. And Joe was very vocal about me not dirt track racing. So for the time being, I'm not going to be dirt track racing.
That time being has apparently expired. According to Gluck's article, the team changed its opinion on the matter because it's adding a second driver with a dirt background in Briscoe and has a third driver with new interest in the discipline in Joe's grandson, Ty. Quote, "Always prefer drivers' focus remain on racing in NASCAR," Gibbs told The Athletic. But with all but one driver, Denny Hamlin, interested in dirt, the team, quote, "felt it was fair to come up with a process to consider those opportunities," end quote. "We sort of talked things over to come up with a process by which they can request to run certain races," Gibbs said. "If they get approval from everyone they need on our competition side, then they are free to run the race. That includes dirt, but also potentially other forms of racing." I have to say, I'm really interested to see how this plays out, and if it just might help the 4-car organization end its extended winless drought, which stands currently at 18 races. Moving on to our next story, and we're going to take a look back at the 2024 NASCAR television ratings. If you'll recall, weather played a big factor in races earlier in the year, starting at LA and the Clash, and in the first points-paying race at the Daytona 500, which was delayed to Monday. The Chicago Street Course also had a delay. Despite those changes, the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season averaged 2.89 million viewers across NBC, USA, Fox, and FS1, up 1% from last year. Interestingly, with the playoff format under serious scrutiny, the 10-race playoffs averaged 2.33 million, or an increase of 6% over last year. The season finale at Phoenix had 2.9 million viewers on NBC, which was flat in ratings and down 1% in viewership from last year, snapping a streak of 5 straight year-over-year gains. The Xfinity Series season finale had 1.1 million on the CW. the largest sports audience of the year on the channel, and the largest audience for the Xfinity Series season finale since 2019 on the now-defunct NBC SN. The race, which peaked at 1.4 million viewers, increased 17% over last year's finale on the USA Network. Rounding out the weekend slate, the Truck Series finale had 480,000 viewers, or up 16% on FS1. Those numbers indicate fan interest is on an uptick. No matter how you slice it, that's good news. But I don't want to tell you why I think viewership increased this year. I want to show you with some impressive highlights statistics for the season. It's long, but if I'm being honest, I go through this list and it reminds me what a hell of a year we just finished. 7 drivers had 3 or more wins in 2024, led by Kyle Larson with 6, followed by Joey Logano with 4, and the rest had 3: Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and Ryan Blaney. The modern era record is 8 in 2016. 18 different drivers won a race in 2024, tied for third most all-time in the modern era. 2024 is the 4th straight season with more than 15 different winners, setting a new all-time record. 3 of the 8 closest margins of victory have come in 2024. Kansas by 1/1000th of a second, Atlanta by 3/1000ths of a second, and Talladega 6/1000ths of a second. 10 organizations won a race in 2024. It is the 2nd straight season with 10 winning organizations. 13 races in 2024 had an overtime finish, the most ever in a season. 23 different drivers won a stage this season, the most all time. 6 races in 2024 ended with a last lap pass, the most ever in a season. There were 7 track lead change records set in 2024, 27% of all active tracks. 9 drivers broke a winless streak of 42 or more races this season, the most ever in a season, including Brad Keselowski and Alex Bowman. The Spring Texas race saw 16 cautions, the most in a race in 2024. The driver leading with 10 laps to go failed to win 16 of 36 races, the 3rd most ever in a season. 2017 and 2022 saw 18. The first race at Richmond had no drivers with a DNF, the only race in 2024 without a DNF. Nashville had 5 overtime finishes, the most ever in a race. The race went 31 laps past the scheduled distance, also the most ever in a race. 2 races did not reach their scheduled distance. The Coca-Cola 600 was rain shortened after 267 of 400 laps, and the Chicago Street Race for the 2nd year in a row was shortened due to darkness rain after 58 of 75 laps. The Chicago Street Race was just 127.6 miles, the shortest Cup race since Watkins Glen in 1992. Only 2 races did a driver win both stages and the race. Kyle Larson did it in the first race at Las Vegas and the 2nd race at Bristol. 7 drivers won a race in the postseason. The record is 8. 6 races ended under yellow in 2024, tied for the most in the modern era. There was 1 first-time winner in 2024, Harrison Burton, at the 2nd race at Daytona. It was the 16th season with only 1 first-time winner and the first time since 1985. Michael McDowell won the most poles of any driver in 2024 at 6, and this is after he entered 2024 not ever having won a pole in his first 466 career starts. McDowell also won the pole in 5 straight drafting track races, the most in a row since Bill Elliott did it in 1985-86. Front Row Motorsports led 386 laps in 2024, the most they have ever led in a season. They had led 493 laps in their prior 19 seasons combined. Kyle Larson led 1,700 laps in 2024, more than any other driver. This is the 2nd year in a row Larson led the most laps and the 4th consecutive season a Hendrick Motorsports driver has led that category. Gibbs Racing won 13 poles, more than any other team. JGR has had the most or been tied for the most poles in 7 of the last 8 seasons with qualifying, excluding 2020 and 2021. The 54 lead changes in the first race at Bristol was the most lead changes at a track smaller than 1.5 miles in the history of NASCAR. Only 5 cars finished on that lead lap at Bristol, the fewest in a race since Dover in June 2004. No race has had fewer than 5 cars on the lead lap since Rockingham in 2000. 43 drivers led a lap in 2024, the most in a season since 2015. 33 drivers scored a top 5 finish in 2024, the most in a season since 2001. 40 drivers scored a top 10 finish in 2024, the most in a season since 2007. Tyler Reddick won the regular season championship by 1 point over Kyle Larson. This is the closest regular season championship since Carl Edwards beat Jimmy Johnson by 1 point in 2013. Qualifying was canceled at New Hampshire in June, ending a run of 39 straight races with qualifying, the longest streak since 2000. Martin Truex Jr. led 555 laps in 2024, marking the 10th straight season in which he led 500-plus laps. He became just the 6th driver in history to accomplish this. Kyle Busch failed to win in 2024, ending a 19-year streak of at least one win, an all-time record. And an option tire was used at Richmond. It was the first time an alternate tire was used in a points-paying race. Whew! I told you 2024 was chock full of highlights. I think when I look back on them, the thing that really stands out to me is something I've mentioned multiple times on the channel in the past, and that's parity. The very first stat I read shows that, with 7 drivers recording 3 or more wins in 2024. Or this stat, 43 drivers leading a lap in 2024, the most in a season since 2015. I don't know about you, but for me, those numbers are exciting. I like knowing that when we go into a race, it's anyone's game. This season, that really proved to be true. The other thing I notice is there are trends developing. For example, 2024 was the 4th straight season with more than 15 different winners, setting a new all-time record. Remember, 3 of those seasons have been in the Gen 7 car. I know the Gen 7 car gets a lot of grief from some fans, but I'd push back and show them these stats. The 2024 numbers don't lie. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. I want to hear what you thought about it. First, let's start with the news from Gibbs Racing, that the drivers will be allowed to compete in races outside of NASCAR. I want to hear from you C-Bell fans. Are you happy about that decision? And what about you Ty Gibbs fans? Are you looking forward to watching the 22-year-old race on the dirt? As for the other story, what do you think about the 2024 television ratings? And lastly, of all those highlights I showed, which ones are your favorites or your biggest surprise? One that you saw and you were really surprised by. For me, that was the 9 drivers breaking a winless streak of 42 or more races. Okay, and now those orders of business. First, let's give away the 10,000 subscriber hat and shirt. I'm going to give away each to a separate winner. The first winner of a hat is David Reynolds 1283. That's David Reynolds 1283. And the winner of a 10K shirt is Jacob Edward Fry 8845. That's Jacob Edward Fry 8845. And finally, the big winner of the Martin Truex Jr. helmet out of more than 500 entries, and that's MRoch 1084. MRoch, R-O-C-H 1084. David Reynolds, Jacob Edward Fry, and MRoch 1084. Please reply to this video and I'll get you your prizes sent out. And while we're on the subject of giveaways, I'm looking to you guys for some help. I want to give away some items for my Christmas gift guide, similar to what I did in June for Father's Day. So let me know what NASCAR-related items you might have on your wish list for this Christmas, and I'll talk to those companies about potentially featuring those items in our gift guide, with the hopes of giving away several of those items to some lucky fans. And finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is my new channel that I mentioned in the last video. I've officially launched Sports Flashback today. For those of you who are after the checkered flag followers, that's the channel I've replaced. Yes, I was the host of that channel as well. I'll include a link in the description so you guys can go check it out. My first video is on the 25th anniversary of the Texas A&M bonfire collapse. I interviewed the Aggie quarterback at the time, Randy McCown, who provided a behind-the-scenes look at how the Aggie football players were working at the bonfire site hours after its collapse, how the team and coach R.C. Slocum prepared for the big game against Texas that following week, and how McCown and his roommate teamed up for the game-winning catch to produce a fairy tale finish and a win that was much bigger than any game and the first step in a long healing process. You don't have to be a Texas A&M fan to appreciate this story and the power of sports and what it did for those fans 25 years ago. All right, guys, thanks again for checking out this latest video and supporting this channel. I really, really appreciate it. and hope you have a great rest of your day.